With the Euros now in full swing and the Copa America having just started, international football is all everyone is talking about and is the football world's focus. And the defending Copa America champions in Argentina seem to be most people's favorites to win the Copa America. And I completely understand why Argentina are the majority's favorites. I mean, they are my favorites to win the Copa America. Argentina, on top of being the World Cup champions and the defending champions of the Copa America, this Argentinian team has won their last 6 games in a row in international football, and they've won 13 out of their last 14 games since the World Cup final. On top of being a complete juggernaut and performing so well for years now, the team itself is utterly stacked, so much so that someone like Paulo Dybala didn't even make it into the team, coming off of a season where he scored 13 goals and got 9 assists in 29 games for Roma in the league alone. Argentina also ranked the #1 in the world by FIFA, although FIFA rankings are just a mess. But all in all, on paper, this should be a pretty easy tournament for Argentina to win. On paper, they are the best team by far, and on the field, they have been the best again by far. Why should anyone else win it? Well, Brazil to me are one of those teams that, they could cause an upset and they could win the tournament. They are, to me, my second favorite behind Argentina, but that doesn't mean that they are just as capable of going all the way and winning Copa America 2024, despite even Ronaldinho saying essentially that this Brazilian team isn't really good, he doesn't want to watch them. But why do I think Brazil might have a good chance at upsetting a lot of people and potentially winning the tournament? Well, that's what we'll be talking about today. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Back of the Net here. I hope you're all doing well. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get into it. Now, I know Brazil haven't been great in recent years, and they are far from the Brazil we all know and we all love. Hence why Ronaldinho said what he said. On top of Brazil not having the most amount of talent that they once had in their golden generations, they also haven't had much stability at the managerial position, with their last permanent manager being Tite, who managed Brazil for 6 years before getting sacked following their elimination at the 2022 World Cup in the quarterfinals to Croatia. And since then, they have had 2 caretaker managers in which they have won just 3 games under. They've drawn 1 game and they lost 5. But in January 2024, Dorival Jr. was hired for Brazil. The ex-Sao Paulo and Flamengo manager, who has never managed outside of South America, has only been in charge of Brazil for 4 games, winning 2 of them and drawing 2 of them. So even the most optimistic Brazilian fans will admit that in recent times they haven't been nearly good enough, and the managerial role is a problem for Brazil and has been for a decent amount of time. But in terms of Brazil's squad that they have, it really isn't a bad squad that does have a lot of individual talent. Now, it's probably not nearly as stacked as Argentina, but it is still a really good squad on paper, arguably the second best squad on paper in the Copa America. From Alisson in goal to having the likes of Marquinhos, Gabriel Magalhães, Eden Militao, Porto from Girona, they have a decent defensive unit. Now, they're not out of this world defensively. They do have some older guys that aren't necessarily as quick as they used to be, that aren't as good as they used to be, but they still do have a solid defensive unit with tons of experience. And in midfield, they aren't as strong as you would like them to be, but they still do have the likes of Bruno Guimaraes, Douglas Luiz, Lucas Paqueta, Edison from Atalanta, not the Edison from Man City obviously, but in the attacking bits of the pitch is where Brazil shine. Having arguably the best player in the world, in my opinion he is right now, and deserves a Ballon d'Or in Vini Jr., having the likes of Rodrigo, of Endrick, who has been sensational for Brazil ahead of his move to Madrid, Evan Nilsson from Porto is a really underrated striker, Savio from Girona, and even guys like Gabriel Martinelli and Rafinha are all solid options for Brazil offensively. So although they aren't the most star-studded Brazilian team ever, they haven't got the likes of Edison from Man City, they haven't got Neymar, and although they aren't the best individual Brazilian team we've ever seen, they still do have a good mix of a lot of experienced vets playing at a very high level in their clubs, to the younger guys that are just out of this world in terms of how good they are, like Endrick and Vinny. But the issue that the world number 5s have is that they haven't yet looked amazing playing together as a unit. They've only kept 1 clean sheet in their last 8 games. They have only won 1 in the last 3, and even when they do win, like against Mexico and England, they have failed to be overly impressive and dominate. Like against Mexico, you'd expect them to dominate, but they failed to thoroughly dominate that game. The last time they won a game by more than 1 goal was on September 9th, 2023 in a 5-1 win over Bolivia, who themselves are in the tournament. Since then, they haven't won a game by more than 1 goal. They've won 3, they've drawn 3, and they've lost 3 games since that 5-1 win against Bolivia. So with all these negatives I have just mentioned about Brazil, well then what gives me the hope that this team could maybe go all the way and be a huge underdog to win the whole tournament? Which is crazy to say that they would be a huge underdog to win the tournament, being that they are Brazil. But with as good as Argentina are, it's understandable. Well, first of all, they are Brazil. They may not be the Brazil of old with Ronaldinho, with Ronaldo, with those star-studded teams, but they are still Brazil. Brazil are 9-time Copa America champions and are runners-up 11 times. They are the 3rd most successful Copa America team of all time. They are still a nation that almost always have a deep run in any tournament that they play in. So although they haven't got the players of old, Neymar isn't playing, they are still Brazil. Also, the players that they do have, don't sleep on them. If they could hit a stride and they could start playing together at a higher level, if they can actually start playing as a unit with the individual talent that they do have, they could really make some noise in this competition. Vinny Jr. could easily end up being the player of the tournament, and a midfield of Bruno Guimaraes, Douglas Luiz, and Lucas Paqueta could be really efficient, really effective, and just dominate teams. And they still do have tons of experience and quality at the back. They have a lot of quality up front. If they all hit their form, if they play well together, if they look like a Brazilian team playing for Brazil, they could upset a lot of people and potentially win the Copa America. Now, for the record, I still do have Argentina as my favorite by quite some distance, but despite what a lot of people think, I am rating Brazil a lot higher than the average football fan, and I'm not gonna count out Brazil just yet. They could do it.